my name's Bram Trim. Our head office is out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We do plumbing, heating, AC, and electrical. We've been in business for since 2001, so this year is our 20th year in business. Myself, I grew up in the trades. My dad was a plumber, my grandpa was a plumber, and so I've been doing plumbing, heating for a long time. And yeah, that's what we do.
As someone starts to think about major plumbing or electrical work, what recommendations would you give to consumer? What considerations need to be taken into account before selecting proper HVAC representative who will do the work? How much research consumers should undertake into different types of appliances, different types of heating systems? What do you recommend to consumers to do?
I mean, there's a lot of information out there that can be, overwhelming for consumers. I think the first thing is picking a contractor that they're comfortable with, that they like, that they trust. Doing that by looking at reviews, but also having them in the home to look at that appliance. With your furnace or your AC, they're going to have to come take a look. If you get a quote over the phone, that's maybe a red flag for me. You're going to have somebody that comes into the home, that takes a look and sees what you have, what you need, make sure they're doing all of the background work to be able to get a system that's going to work best for you and listen to what you want. So that's the first thing. The other side of that is, well, what is the best equipment to put in there? You'll have the contractor that comes in that has one brand, maybe they're a dealer of that brand or what have you. But I think it's something that's important out there. Now, we have the same question ourselves is, hey, what dealer do we want to be? Who do we want to, what kind of equipment do we want to put in? We want to put in the best for the consumer. So we've done a lot of research out there to look at, what we want to put in. And it was interesting. We kind of opened up a Pandora's box it just kept going and going and going. In our review of everything, we found that there were around 60 different furnaces, and I'll talk about furnaces on, being up in Canada, but 60 different furnaces out there in the marketplace. And but then as we dove deeper into it, we also found that of those 60 furnaces, there were only about 7 or 8 actual manufacturers that manufactured those furnaces. And we saw that really a lot of these furnaces were the same, just a different sticker on the outside of the box and at a different price point. And so as we even went further into that, we found that the supplier for a lot of these manufacturers were the same supplier of different motors, different parts, and that kind of stuff. So our takeaway from that was that, in essence, all of these different furnaces are created equal. That they all are trying to put a good product forth. They're all trying to get to the top of efficiencies. They're all doing a great job in that way. And so we found that for the most part, they're all the same. Matter of fact, you could take a part with a little bit of know-how out of one furnace and put it in another one with some adjustments and make it work. And so when we looked at that, we all then step back and said, okay, well, what about warranties? What about the warranties on these furnaces? And then again, we found for the most part that manufacturers today are all at 10-year warranties. Now you got to be careful. You got to read the warranties on it, because some exclude labor, some exclude different parts in the furnace or whatever. But we found for the most part that they were all the same. So when we looked at that, we said, okay, if they're all the same, what's the difference? And I think the big difference is how they're installed. We go to a furnace that's a relatively young furnace, been in a couple of years, and the heat exchanger is gone in it or needs to be replaced. And we look at that and see why that is. And as we get into that installation, we find that corners were cut. Maybe the setup procedure on it was not done. Gas ratings weren't set properly, or different things. It wasn't sized right for the house or what have you. And so when you're looking at a furnace today or an AC unit, I think the most important thing is looking at a contractor who knows what they're doing, who's not cutting any corners, and is giving you the best possible install. That, I think, is the most important thing. You will find that for contractors like that, you may pay a little bit more up front, but in the long run, you will get that back over and over and over again from the efficiency of the furnace, from that furnace not overworking, or the worst case scenario is having to replace that furnace prematurely down the road.
I'm a homeowner. I have 60-gallon water heater in my home. It looks very good from the outside. It's 9 years old. I believe life expectancy of water heater is 7 years.
Depends what municipality you live in, what the water's like. There's some places that are less than that. There's some that's more. Here where I live, the average life of a hot water tank is 11 years old. So, depending on where you live, the type of water you have, whether you're rural, whether you're urban, that makes a difference as well. But where I'm at, 11. Where you're at 7, and it kind of is all over the map.
Do I wait for the tank to burst, or do I replace it?
That's a great question, and I think it's different for every home. I just moved into a new home, and one of the first things I did is I looked to see where my hot water tank was in correlation to where my floor drain was. Then I took a bucket of water and I poured it around my hot water tank and see where it drained to. And in this case, it didn't drain towards the floor drain, it drained towards the wall. And so in my mind as a plumber, maybe that's a weird thing to do. And my wife's, like, what are you doing? But to me, that says, okay, if we do have an issue here, where's it going to go? What do I need to be aware of? And so shortly after we moved into the house, I put a pan, I lifted the hot water tank and put a pan underneath that, a catch pan, and then put a drain over to our floor drain. There's different things that you can do out there to make sure when that hot water tank does go, that it's draining towards that floor drain. In the last house that I was at before this, lived there for 15 years, and it was great. The hot water tank was there. It was, drained right towards the floor drain, and I never had to worry about it. The thing with a hot water tank is, on average, and I think that's the key word, average, is 7 years in your situation. You don't know if on the seventh year, on the first day that hot water tank's going to go. It could be on the 5th year. It could be on the 9th year. I've seen hot water tanks in our area that are 30 years old, where the average is 11. You never know when it's going to go. And so I think it's being proactive a little bit if you're concerned and you don't have the resources to be able to mitigate, I guess, if it ever started to leaking, because it can cause a lot of water, a lot of damage. Be proactive. If it hasn't gone in 7 years and that's what the average is in your area, replace that hot water tank. If you can get a few more years out of that hot water tank, great. Now, that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is the efficiency of that hot water tank. As you heat that hot water, depending on where you are, if you're at a place that has a lot of hard water, as hot water heats up, it drops out the different minerals that are in that hot water, or in that water, and they drop to the bottom, and that's where the heating does. And so if you've got a lot of minerals and that base builds up, it's going to take a lot longer, and your hot water tank efficiency drops considerably to heat that water. So that's the other side of the equation. If it's costing you more to keep this hot water tank in your utility bills and those things than it is to replace that hot water tank, that's the other side of the equation too that you might want to look at. Now, historically, natural gas, at least that's what we heat with, is relatively cheap, and you would have to have a lot of buildup for it to make sense to replace that hot water tank prematurely. It's more the damage side of things that you're looking at to make sure that you're catching that hot water tank in a timely manner and making it work, I guess, as best for you and creating the least amount of damage possible.
Plumbing, HVAC work, if it is unplanned, it's usually expensive, and home warranties usually promise you easier access to plumbers and HVAC specialists, electricians. They promise you lower rates perhaps, and they promise even to cover certain expenses. So what is your take on home warranties, and you as a professional on the other side, how do you see it?
That's a great question. We don't have a lot of home warranty up here per se. More and more are coming the industry. Many years ago, we were approached to do home warranty, and what they were willing to pay was well under what it cost us to be able to cover our costs to go in at the level of service that we had. So I feel, and I don't know if this is with all insurance companies, but I feel that maybe what they're paying the contractors are not as much as what maybe a quality contractor would be at. I'm sure there's differences out there. I could be, putting my foot in my mouth, but you want to make sure, again, and I believe it's the consumer's choice, the person who has that is their choice of who they have in their home. Make sure you're getting somebody that is good, that does well. If they show up in an unmarked vehicle, an unmarked van, to me, that's a red flag. You don't know who you're dealing with, what you're dealing with, and could potentially be an issue. And so, again, we don't have a lot of that as of right now in our marketplace, but the experience that I have had hasn't been positive.
What are the questions to ask during the interview for HVAC, for electrical, for plumbing? As a consumer, what shall I ask? What shall I find out from the person coming into my house in order to measure them up?
I think reviews to a certain part can be trusted. I think once you get over a threshold of how many reviews, everybody's got 10 friends and they could write a great review. And so I think the more reviews adds that contractor is a good contractor. But when you get to what kind of questions to ask when you're coming into a home is, make sure that they've got the proper licensing and that, that they have that available. That should be something that people are asking every day. Ask if they drug test their employees. It's amazing that that's probably the biggest thing out there that people think we as contractors do, but we don't. And is drug test and do criminal background checks on our people. The unfortunate reality is in our industry, and I'm talking about plumbing, heating, there are some major problems with substance abuse and different things like that the spin-offs of that can create massive problems. And so look for a contractor that goes above and beyond. We don't have to drug test. We don't have to do criminal background checks, which blows my mind, to be perfectly honest with you. But look for those contractors that go above and beyond, that advertise that they do drug testing, advertise they do criminal background checks. If you ask them for their proper insurance, that they have it. And that's another thing that consumers don't realize, at least in our municipality, in our area, you don't have to have liability insurance. So if I come into your home and I blow up your home, I can walk away and you could sue me. I could, I guess, declare bankruptcy, but I don't have to have liability insurance. Make sure that whoever you have come in your home has liability insurance, that they have the proper license to be working in that trade. All of those things are easy things to check before a contractor does any kind of work in your home. And for those that don't want to supply that or maybe don't have that when you ask, again, that could be something that I would look at and say, hey, this could be a problem.
What needs to be done by a regular homeowner on a regular basis for each of the systems? What recommendations would you make on the regular maintenance to prolong life of the current appliances? That's first question. Second question would be, do you recommend hiring a professional to doing that regular maintenance, or homeowner can do it themselves?
So let's first start, I guess, with plumbing, and probably the biggest appliance that you have in the plumbing side of things is your hot water tank. Now, a hot water tank, the best thing to do is maintain a hot water tank is flush it annually, get all of the sediment and build up in that hot water tank out for it to be able to run as long as possible and as efficient as possible. Now, if you don't know how to do that or don't feel comfortable, by all means have a professional come in, but it's not something in my mind that a professional needs to do. You can save yourself, a lot of money over the course of the lifetime of that hot water tank by being able to do it yourself. There are some great YouTube videos out there I know when we go out to a consumer and we flush their hot water tank, we invite them to come along and we show them the steps to be able to do it safely, and so that they can do that themselves the next time. Again, if they don't feel comfortable with that, we're more than happy to come back and take care of that for them. So with maintenance of a plumbing system, I think that with the hot water tank, that's something that needs to be done. The other side to that is the next biggest problem that you have in a home is usually drains. And there's two different levels to drains. There's ones with the shower, the sinks, and then there's your main drain going out of the home. So on your drains with your showers and your sinks, there's a product that we found I believe it's out of Florida, down in the States. That's a bacteria that you can put in your drain and it maintains it. And you have to be careful what you're putting down drains. There's a lot of products out there that are strong acids that are very, probably not too environmentally friendly, but more importantly, are very hard on a plumbing system, especially if you have an older plumbing system that has metal with it, because it reacts very, very strongly with it. I've been in systems where it's actually eaten out the bottom of the pipes because of the acid that's being put through. So I don't recommend products that are, that strong acid that can eat through the hair and that kind of stuff, but they're also eating through other things. Look for other products, or else learn how to clean it out manually. There's different YouTube videos again, or have a professional come in. The other side to that, the other big problem that people have is their main sewers that go out. And depending again of what part of the country you live in, where we are, because of the frost levels, those pipes need to be 8 feet plus underneath the ground. And so it's a major to dig those up. In other warmer climates where it doesn't freeze, there can be as little as 6 inches below the ground. But one of the problems with a sewer or a main drain going out of the house is you don't know you have a problem until you have a problem. And the only way to find that out is by having usually a contractor come in with a camera down that line to make sure that it's in good condition. Because a lot of times you'll get root intrusion that grows in, starts to break up that pipe, creates dams, and things get caught on it. And you don't know that that's happening because it's underground, it's concealed. The only way too is with a camera inspection. Now, we obviously live in a day and age where we've got these cool tools and we're able to see what's going on down there. I recommend doing that before or once a year. Also strongly, highly recommend, can't tell you the amount of times when we get a phone call of somebody who's just moved in and they have a backup, and we go in and see that they have massive root intrusion that could have been found out before they moved into a home. That's kind of a different topic, but something that is a great thing to do, that is a need to do before ever purchasing a home. So on the plumbing side, those are some of the things that you can do to with maintenance, and also with having a professional that comes in to look at the different things that maybe the average consumer doesn't have access to. So that's on the plumbing side. On the heating side, the biggest thing that I think can be done is in maintenance is make sure that you are changing your filter constantly. Not only does that filter clean the air so that we can breathe better, but it also helps to keep that piece of equipment maintained and in good working order. If you have a dirty piece of equipment, it can, different studies have shown that it can reduce the efficiency of that piece of equipment up to 30-40%. And if it's dirty, then it's not working properly, and it also potentially reduces the lifespan of the different components on that furnace. Whether it's a furnace or an AC, both things need to be done. On the furnace or the AC, the time though that it's working the hardest is when it's extremely cold outside and it's working overtime. And when something works hard, that's when it breaks down, when you need it the most. And so I recommend that at the beginning of each season that you go in and you can test all the different components, whether it's a fan or a relay or whatever it is, to be able to fit into a certain spectrum that the manufacturers put out there. Not many people do this, unfortunately, but I would have every year, we recommend that you have somebody come in and test and make sure that all the components of that furnace or AC fit within the parameter of the manufacturer. And if it doesn't, replace them. And it's a lot easier to get a heating company or an AC company out to your home when it's not, freezing cold outside or extremely hot for AC, and be able to replace those components than when everybody else needs it at the same time. You're freezing or you're sweating like crazy, and those service companies are just going day and night to try and keep up with the load. So proactiveness, definitely, especially when it's a life and death situation, which it can turn out to be. Being a little bit proactive of getting things tested before, and if it needs to be changed out, change it. Might be working perfectly fine, but if it doesn't fit within the parameters, that's saying, hey, I'm not feeling well, maybe it's time to change me. On the electrical side of things, we just started electrical division about 3 years ago now. I'm not an electrician myself, but I know we do go in and do electrical inspections to make sure that everything is set up right. Looking for things like aluminum wiring, making sure that it's grounded properly, all of those different things. Have an electrician come into your home, especially if it's an older home. There's a lot of different things that over years can start to break down, and that you need to, have maintained by a professional, by someone who knows what they're talking about. People are looking for people or for contractors that they can like and trust. And places like this that care and do the research behind the contractors, I think, are great. I think review sites are an added bonus in this day and age, and I think are an important part of the consumer to have a positive experience. So do your homework before you have a contractor come into your home, and hopefully it's a positive one then.